Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The rain drummed against the bus windows, a relentless soundtrack to our journey. Abby slept soundly beside me, her small frame nestled against the worn leather seat. I envied her ability to sleep through the bumps and jolts of the old bus as it wound its way through the countryside. For me, sleep was elusive, my mind churning with thoughts of the past and fears for the future. The city had been my home for most of my life. I had built my career as a doctor at St. Mark's Hospital, where I had worked for nearly a decade, but everything changed after my divorce from Robert. Our marriage had been rocky for years, but the final straw came when I discovered his infidelity. The betrayal cut deep, and the ensuing divorce was bitter and painful. To make matters worse, the hospital underwent a massive downsizing shortly after our separation, and I found myself without a job. The life I had built crumbled around me, leaving me to pick up the pieces. An unexpected letter from a former patient, Mrs. Warren, offered a glimmer of hope. She had left me an inheritance, a house in a remote village. Desperate for a fresh start, I decided to take Abby and leave the city behind. The thought of moving to a place I had never seen, based solely on the word of a woman I had treated only briefly, seemed absurd. But with no other options, I embraced the absurdity. The bus ride felt interminable. Each mile took us further from the life we had known and closer to an uncertain future. As the rain intensified, the landscape outside the window became a blur of gray and green. The bus finally came to a halt at an inconspicuous stop, with no signs or markers to indicate our destination. "This is your village," the driver said, his voice gruff but kind. "Just follow that dirt road, and you'll find it." Abby stirred, rubbing her eyes as she looked around. "Mom, is this our stop? Where's the village? Why can't we see any houses?" I forced a smile, trying to mask my own uncertainty. "Yes, sweetie, this is our stop." The driver said the village is just down that road. The driver helped us unload our suitcases, and I thanked him before he drove off, leaving us standing on the muddy ground. The air was crisp, and the smell of wet earth filled my lungs as I took a deep breath, hoping to steady my nerves. "Come on, Abby," I said, taking her hand. "Let's go find our new home." We trudged along the dirt road, the weight of our suitcases making each step feel like a Herculean effort. The road wound uphill, and after what felt like an eternity, we reached a crest. Below us lay the village, its quaint houses nestled among the trees. It was a picturesque scene, straight out of a postcard. As we made our way into the village, I couldn't shake the feeling of disorientation. The streets were empty, and the only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the distant chirping of birds. We finally arrived at the house Mrs. Warren had left us, a charming, if somewhat dilapidated, cottage. The front door creaked as I pushed it open, and we stepped inside. The interior was modest but cozy, with a small kitchen, a living room, and 2 bedrooms. A thick layer of dust covered the furniture, evidence of the time it had stood empty. Despite its condition, I felt a glimmer of hope. This could be our new beginning. "Mom, look," Abby called from one of the bedrooms. "There's a big bed and a window that looks out over the garden." I joined her, smiling at her excitement. "It's perfect, isn't it? Let's get settled in and make it our own." We spent the next few days cleaning and unpacking, transforming the house into a home. The villagers began to appear, curious about the newcomers. One afternoon, an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor knocked on our door. "Hello, I'm Oscar, the village doctor," he introduced himself. "Welcome to our little community." I shook his hand, grateful for his warmth. "Thank you, Oscar. I'm Alyssa, and this is my daughter, Abby." "It's a pleasure to meet you both," Oscar said. "If you need anything or have any questions, don't hesitate to ask." As the days passed, Oscar became a regular visitor. He shared stories of the village and offered advice on adjusting to our new life. One evening, over a cup of tea, He told me about the medical station in the village. We could use some help, he said, his eyes twinkling with hope. The village has been without a proper medical facility for too long, and I'm getting on in years. Would you consider joining me? I hesitated, the wounds from my departure from street marks still fresh, but the thought of using my skills to help the community was appealing. I'll think about it, Oscar. Thank you for the offer. The days began to blur together as Abby and I settled into our new routine in the village. Each morning, I woke early to the sound of birdsong, the crisp mountain air a refreshing contrast to the stale city smog I'd left behind. Abby adapted quickly to her new surroundings, her boundless curiosity leading her to explore every nook and cranny of our new home. One morning, as I prepared breakfast, Abby burst into the kitchen, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Mom, guess what? There's a pond behind the house. Can we go see it? I smiled at her enthusiasm. Of course, sweetheart. Let's finish breakfast first, then we can go check it out. After we ate, we ventured out into the backyard, following a narrow path that led through a small grove of trees. The pond was a hidden gem, its surface reflecting the blue sky and the lush greenery that surrounded it. Abby skipped stones across the water, her laughter echoing in the stillness. This place is amazing, she said, her eyes sparkling. I can't believe we get to live here. Neither can I replied, feeling a deep sense of contentment. It's like a whole new world. In the afternoon, Oscar visited again. He brought a basket of fresh vegetables from his garden, a gesture of welcome and support. Thank you for the vegetables, Oscar. It's very kind of you. He smiled warmly. It's the least I could do. We take care of each other here. And speaking of which, have you thought any more about helping at the medical station? I paused, considering his offer. The idea of returning to medicine was both daunting and exciting. The scars from my departure from street marks were still fresh, but the opportunity to make a difference in this small community was tempting. I said finally. I'd like to give it a try. It's been a while since I felt needed. Oscar's face lit up with relief and gratitude. That's wonderful news, Alyssa. We could use your skills and experience. Why don't you come by tomorrow, and we can get started? Thank you, Oscar. I'll be there. The following day, I walked with Abby to the medical station, feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. The building was modest but well maintained, a testament to Oscar's dedication. Inside, it was a different world. Clean, orderly, and equipped with the basics needed to care for the villagers. Oscar greeted us at the door, his smile reassuring. Welcome, Alyssa. Let me show you around. As we toured the facility, I felt a sense of purpose returning. The medical station was small but efficient, with treatment rooms, a pharmacy, and a comfortable waiting area. It was clear that Oscar had poured his heart into this place. There's a lot to do, he said, as we finished the tour. But with your help, I think we can make a real difference. I hope so, I replied, feeling a renewed sense of determination. I'm ready to get started. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. I quickly settled into a routine, dividing my time between the medical station and our home. The work was demanding but fulfilling, and the villagers' gratitude was a constant reminder of why I had chosen this path. Oscar and I made a formidable team, our complementary skills and shared passion for helping others creating a seamless partnership. Later that week, as I walked Abby to the small village school, we encountered a group of children playing in the street. They stopped and stared at us, their curiosity evident. One of the boys, a freckle-faced redhead, stepped forward. Hi, I'm Tommy, he said, offering a shy smile. Are you new here? Yes, we are, I replied, introducing myself and Abby. We just moved here a few weeks ago. Tommy's eyes lit up. That's cool. Do you want to play with us, Abby? Abby glanced at me, seeking permission, and I nodded. Go ahead, have fun. I'll pick you up after school. As I watched her join the other children, my heart swelled with pride. She was resilient, adapting to our new life with grace and courage. I knew we had made the right decision in coming here. A few days later, an unexpected visitor arrived at the medical station. A tall, ruggedly handsome man with dark hair and piercing blue eyes walked in, carrying a large sack over his shoulder. He introduced himself as Edward, the local taxi driver. "Good morning," he said, his voice deep and soothing. "I have a delivery for you from the next town over." "Thank you, Edward," Oscar replied, motioning for him to set the sack down. "Alyssa, this is Edward. He's our go-to man for anything we need from outside the village." Edward turned to me with a friendly smile. "Nice to meet you, Alyssa. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask." As the weeks went by, Edward became a frequent visitor to the medical station. He often stayed to chat, sharing stories of his travels and the people he'd met. I found myself looking forward to his visits, his easygoing nature and warm personality, a welcome distraction from the demands of my work. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, Edward stopped by unexpectedly. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, holding up a thermos of coffee. "Not at all," I replied, gesturing to the empty chair beside me. "What brings you here?" Edward poured himself a cup of coffee and leaned back, gazing out at the sunset. "I wanted to see how you and Abby are settling in. It's not every day we get new residents in the village." "We're doing well, thank you," I said, smiling. "Abby loves it here, and I'm enjoying my work at the medical station." He nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "That's good to hear. This village has a way of becoming home if you let it." As the days turned into weeks, life in the village settled into a comfortable rhythm. Abby thrived at her new school, making friends and embracing the adventures that each day brought. I continued to immerse myself in my work, finding fulfillment in helping the villagers and learning from Oscar. One evening, after a particularly long day at the medical station, I returned home to find Abby waiting for me on the porch. "Mom, guess what? Edward invited us to a bonfire at the village square tonight. Can we go?" I hesitated, exhaustion tugging at my limbs, but the excitement in her eyes was infectious. "Sure, why not? It sounds like fun." As we arrived at the village square, the air was filled with the scent of wood smoke and the sound of laughter. Villagers gathered around the roaring bonfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Edward spotted us and waved us over, a welcoming smile on his face. "I'm glad you could make it," he said, handing us skewers for the marshmallows. These bonfires are a village tradition, a way for everyone to come together and enjoy each other's company. We spent the evening chatting and laughing with the villagers, the warmth of the fire and the camaraderie around us creating a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt in a long time. As the flames died down and the stars began to twinkle overhead, I realized that this village, with its quirks and charms, had become our home. Visits Edward to the medical station became more frequent, and we often found ourselves sharing long conversations over cups of coffee. There was an ease between us, a mutual understanding that grew deeper with each passing day. One afternoon, as I was organizing supplies, Edward stopped by. He was carrying a large box, his face beaming with pride. "I thought you might need this," he said, setting the box on the counter. "It's a new stethoscope and some other medical supplies. I know the station could use an upgrade." "Edward, this is amazing. Thank you so much," I said, genuinely touched by his generosity. "You didn't have to do this." He shrugged, his smile never wavering. "It's the least I could do. You've already done so much for this village in such a short time." One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Edward turned to me, his expression serious. "Alyssa, there's something I've been meaning to tell you." I looked at him, my heart pounding. "What is it, Edward?" He took a deep breath, his eyes searching mine. "I know you've been through a lot. and I don't want to overstep, but I care about you, and I care about Abby. I want to be here for you, if you'll let me." Tears welled up in my eyes, and I reached out to take his hand. "Thank you, Edward. That means more to me than you know." That evening, Abby and I sat on the porch, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. The village was quiet, the only sounds the distant calls of night creatures. It was a peace I had never known in the city, a tranquility that soothed my weary soul. "Mom, do you think we'll be happy here?" Abby asked, her voice filled with innocent curiosity. "I think so, sweetie," I replied, wrapping my arm around her. "I think we're going to be very happy here." The first snowfall came earlier than expected, blanketing the village in a pristine layer of white. Abby's excitement was palpable as she pressed her face against the window, watching the flakes swirl and dance in the air. "Mom, can we go outside and play in the snow?" she pleaded, turning to me with wide, hopeful eyes. I couldn't resist her enthusiasm. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's bundle up first." We spent the morning building snowmen and making snow angels in the yard. Laughter echoed through the crisp air, our worries and uncertainties momentarily forgotten. As we headed back inside to warm up with hot cocoa, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Life in the village was turning out to be more than I had ever hoped for. A few days later, Oscar called me into his office. "Alyssa, I've been thinking about our work here," he began, his expression serious yet hopeful. "The village has been without a proper medical facility for too long. We need to expand and improve our services." I nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "What do you have in mind, Oscar?" "We need more space and better equipment," he explained. "And we could use another doctor to share the load. I've already spoken to the village council, and they're willing to support us, but we need to find funding and resources." Determined to help, I spent the next few weeks reaching out to various organizations and contacting old colleagues. One evening, as I was drafting yet another proposal, Edward stopped by. "You look exhausted," he observed, concern etched on his face. "How can I help?" I sighed, grateful for his presence. "Just being here helps. But actually, there's something you might be able to assist with. We need to raise funds to expand the medical station." Edward's eyes lit up with determination. "Consider it done. I know a few people who might be interested in supporting our cause." True to his word, Edward's connections came through. Donations started pouring in, and soon we had enough to begin renovations. The entire village pitched in to help, their sense of community and dedication touching my heart deeply. With the renovations complete, the medical station officially reopened. The villagers gathered for a small ceremony, their gratitude and excitement palpable. Oscar and I gave a short speech, thanking everyone for their support and hard work. That evening, as I stood on the porch with Edward and Abby, I reflected on how far we had come. The village had embraced us, and we had embraced the change it brought into our lives. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. The expanded medical station allowed us to provide better care to the villagers, and I found myself more fulfilled in my work than ever before. Abby continued to thrive, her laughter and joy a constant reminder of why we had made this journey. One particularly busy afternoon, a young woman burst into the medical station, her face pale and frantic. "Help! My father collapsed at home. He's not breathing." Oscar and I sprang into action, grabbing our medical bags and rushing to the woman's house. We found her father unconscious on the floor, his breathing shallow and erratic. "Stay calm," I instructed the woman as Oscar and I began administering CPR. "We need to keep his airway open and get him to the hospital immediately." With the help of a few villagers, we managed to stabilize him and transport him to the nearest hospital. It was a tense few hours, but we received word that he would make a full recovery. The woman's gratitude was overwhelming. "Thank you so much. I don't know what we would have done without you." Oscar and I exchanged a relieved glance. "This is why we do what we do," he said quietly, pride evident in his voice. That evening, as I sat with Edward on the porch, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Today reminded me why I became a doctor, I said, leaning against him. Helping people, saving lives, it's all worth it. Edward wrapped his arm around me. You and Oscar make an incredible team, and you have the whole village behind you. Life continued to surprise us with unexpected turns. One crisp winter morning, as Edward and I walked to the market, he stopped abruptly. Alyssa, I have something for you, he said, reaching into his coat pocket. I watched in astonishment as he pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple, elegant ring. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down my face as I nodded. Yes, Edward, 1,000 times yes. The village celebrated our engagement with a warmth and joy that touched my heart. Abby was thrilled, and our small family felt more complete than ever. As winter gave way to spring, our wedding day arrived. We chose to marry in a small, charming church in the neighboring village, surrounded by friends and the community that had embraced us so fully. It was a simple ceremony, filled with love and hope for the future.